She helps create fish for a new planet.
Welcome to Soul Guide with Vondi Lozano, a show about past lives, life between lives, and this life.
Hey, everybody. Great to be back with you again today here on Soul Guide. I'm Vondi Lozano, and we have a very special guest. Shelly Rapp is here with us today. So I'm going to bring Shelly into the stream now. So here we go. Okay. Let's see. There you are. Hi, Shelly. How are
Hi,
you?
everybody. I'm good. Good. How are you?
Good. So do you feel like a movie
Good.
star back for the second time?
Oh, yeah. It's so hot today. I could hardly get
I
on my
know.
makeup. So
I know. And here we are in Ventura. I think it's
I
probably
know.
hotter even where other people are.
We're lucky.
But thank you very much for being with us
You're
today. So
welcome.
I'm just going to do a
Welcome.
little intro, which I forgot to say, which she was Moses in her past life. So if you haven't had a chance, oh, David's chiming in. Hi, Shelly.
Hi, David.
She was Moses in her past life. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that episode of Soul Guide, make sure and check it out. And then today we're talking about your life between lives session.
Yeah.
So before we get started, just in case some people didn't get to watch last time, I always like to do a little background.
Yeah.
So a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do. I know you used to be a
Okay.
nurse, but now you mostly devote your life
Right.
to taking care of
Right.
Scott. But do you want to
Right.
say a little bit about any of that?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I lived in Minnesota for 50 years, and then I moved to California. My family and I moved to California about 9 years ago, just to get a fresh start and start over. And it's a lot of craziness in my life, a lot of crazy things, and that's what brought me to Vivendi.
Mm,
And it's been a fascinating journey. I did this really like you'd go see a psychic, like, oh, that'll be interesting, and it's been life changing. So
mm.
very exciting. Yeah.
Thank you, Shelly. And thank you for being here with us. So I have to admit, I was going to ask what drew you to it, and then what drew you to the fact that, is it okay if I say more?
Sure.
Because you didn't just do the
Absolutely.
sessions. Then you came to the 3-day retreat in Malibu.
Yeah.
From there, you joined the group. We even have other group
Yeah.
members joining us online here today. So what
Yeah.
has you coming back for more?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I really, when I first did this with you, I really didn't expect much other than like, oh, you were this in your life and those are your people and like no big deal. And then mine were so strange and I didn't feel even like I was getting a lot of like the detail that I saw other people getting. And so I've been under 3 times now, including the retreat, and each time gets more and more detailed. So I'd like to do this every month. It'd be so
Let's see
much
if we can
fun.
work that out somehow. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
and then I know in the workshop we don't go as deep, or excuse me, the group, and
yeah,
you're pretty new to that, but it's you've been a part of that. I feel like you're also loving connecting with the other people.
yeah, because I've never really felt like when your core beliefs are the same as other people, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Like you don't even know anything about someone, but you believe like really the same core things. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's been
hard
great.
not to get sucked into that.
Yeah. Well, it's been
Yeah,
great to have you with us.
same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know we have people who want to hear about your life between lives. So
Okay.
let's jump right in. Well, in fact, first we're going to talk a little bit about your past life session. And I didn't write as many notes as I usually do. For those
Yeah.
of you who don't know,
Yeah.
I take my notes to it's usually to my ring light. It's something else because we're in the middle of a remodel and my ring light isn't there. But I have them taped behind me. But I just put a little bit because, as we
Yeah.
remember, it was kind of an easy life. But let me walk you through some of it. So who do you
Yeah.
remember who you emerged as, where you
Yeah.
were, the dates, anything
It
like that?
it's so strange. Okay. So basically it's the opposite of this life of mine. I've actually had a lot of good cries about it. It was crazy. So I was a woman, I think I was like 35. My name was Emma. It seemed like the mid 1700 Wales. I had like a just kind of a dusty, dirty old linen skirt, kind of a peasanty top and a leather belt. And I was in the middle of like a village. Um, and it was a community. Like
Yeah.
everybody was working together. Everybody had the same goals. my mother and father were there. My father was the blacksmith, and we were just doing chores like for the day. I felt like I was churning butter or something, or
Mhm, mhm.
sweeping. Um, yeah, and then um, there was a port kind of at the end, but it wasn't busy, but just this nice, beautiful kind of romantic port, and the kids would run down there, and it was just so beautiful. Um, and then we were getting ready for like a children's event and or a children's concert, and it wasn't Christmas because it wasn't winter, but the whole community was there. It was sort of like in the church and the school were all the same, and the kids were singing, and it was wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah, it was a
yeah,
beautiful life. And
yeah,
then there were some moments I asked you to go back to the childhood, a happy
yeah.
moment. Do you remember any of those?
Yeah, the childhood, I was sitting at a kitchen table. My mom and dad, oh, actually, my dad was not there. I knew he was out doing his blacksmith thing. My mom was there. Um, Seemed very clear that it was my grandma
Mm,
in this life,
mhm.
um, which is kind of funny. I had a psychic reading a few years ago, and the woman did it, said, your mother is here. Is your mother passed? And I'm like, no. And she goes, oh, she's adamant she's your mom. And she started saying like all the stuff my grandma said in the like my grandma's upset about
Mm.
something, and she was talking about that. So yeah, that was wild. But yeah, it was just a nice childhood. And then I was
And then
married
mhm.
to this guy, kind of tall, dark hair. We had two or three kids. Um, yeah. Oh, and then I died of just old age. I was a widow, and I was just laying in my bed, and I felt like my kids were there at my bedside, and it was no big deal. And um, the strange thing, though, like compared to the other lives I've
Mhm,
seen,
mhm.
either Moses or like the people at the retreat, I had such emotion, like, or even like when the mom in my Moses life was stroking my back, it just brought me to tears, how wonderful it
But
was.
that's really common. In fact, I always tell people
Yeah,
that's how we know it's real. Well, I don't wanna say it's
yeah,
common, but it happens a lot where
yeah,
to me, that's the validation that you're
yeah,
experiencing something real, you're not just making it up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But this one, I felt no connection to anyone except when I was in town, like part of my day, after I'd get the kids to school, I'd go to this horse stable.
I was just gonna
And
say, what about the
yeah.
man in the barn? Right.
So that man in the barn, every day I would go and talk to the man in the barn. And he felt it wasn't romantic. It was like brotherly, best friend. I would just gravitate to the barn. That's the only thing. It was very strange.
Okay, so let me jump in, just giving people a little
Yeah,
taste of when we cross over and go to your soul group. It turned out that was your brother
yeah,
in
yeah,
this life.
yeah. Hmm.
Okay. And I think the only other things I had were a happy, proud moment was when your son had a
Oh
baby.
yeah, that was cool. Yeah. And again, it was just like very pleasant, but it was like I was watching a movie.
Mhm. So you were a little bit
Yeah,
removed.
I was holding a grandbaby and his wife, my son and his wife were there. We're all just like, "Oh," but
Yeah.
there was
And it's
no
funny because
connection.
sometimes people are like immersed in it.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're seeing from like behind their eyes looking out. And sometimes they're more watching themselves, like watching a movie.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
either way is valid.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just remember you saying it was a successful life.
Yes. Yeah, everything was perfect, like, literally. Like, everything was perfect.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And then when we crossed over, I'm gonna stop and we're gonna show our video in
Yeah,
just a second. But I remember them saying when we asked about that life, it was an easy
yeah,
life. Like
yeah,
kinda like, "There we go, we threw you a bone
yeah,
because you have other
yeah,
hard lives." But we
yeah,
you got to have a little easy life there.
yeah. I kind of wonder, like, if it like I just watched it. That's how they talked me into getting down here. Like, watch this movie. This is how it'll be. It'll be great. And then when we asked the question, how was this life? I feel like almost the answer we got, like, yeah, she got an easy one. Like we tricked her. That's what it's like.
That's
I
funny.
don't know.
Okay.
So,
All right. So, um, let me see if the video is ready. Let me
okay,
look at Leticia. Do we have it? Are we ready to go? Okay, it looks like the video is still being uploaded. So
okay,
let's talk a little bit. We'll kind of set it up for everybody.
yeah,
So I just am going to tell people this, and you don't listen, Shelly, because you're not going to like this.
okay,
Shelly's a very advanced soul. And my advanced souls never like me to say that because part of being advanced soul is they're very modest. So, one of the ways I knew that is when you cross over, usually you're met by a guide or somebody who orients you back to your life between lives. Well,
yeah.
you did not go to a guide. In fact, I was disoriented in your session because I couldn't figure out
So
where we were or
very,
what was happening initially.
yeah.
So, what do you when you so
And you got a little, um, I didn't hear you, but I think you asked what happened.
yeah,
Your,
you? Who
your
were you
screen's a
met
little
by?
frozen. Okay. So, well, when I died, then I felt like I was just floating on the Milky Way, like I was in space, just floating, and it was black, and I could see like the swirly purple. It was beautiful. And then there was like this big orange ball, like this massive orange light, and I had to like get through it. And it almost felt like egg yolk or plasma. And I'm like getting through it. And then and I get through, there's this hallway, and it looks like Jesus is sitting on a bench. And he's just sitting there like waiting for me.
Like,
Like no
hey.
big deal. Like he's just like, yeah, you're doing a past life thing. Let's go. That's what it felt like.
I know,
It's
and
so
usually
weird.
this is when we go through all this orientation and
No,
reviewing that life. There was none of
it was
that.
like,
So instead, you were in
yeah.
a building. I couldn't figure out if it was a classroom or a lab.
Yeah, yeah,
Eventually, it turned out you were scientists, so I think it was a lab. But tell me about the first
yeah,
thing you remember about the building and the rooms you saw.
yeah. So it was my first impression, honestly, was like Fred Flintstone looking, like a stone, almost round white with like rounded doorways. But then it was apparent it was very modern. And there were three rooms. Um, and the first room, Jesus was like, okay, this is a plant room. There was like plants, people working on
Well, and
plants.
I think even before that, you said something about nature. The building was about nature
Yeah. Yeah. Because you were like, is that a classroom? And I'm like, yeah, I think they're learning about Earth or something.
or nature. And I misremember the word nature.
Nature,
Mhm.
nature. Um, yeah. So he's like, here's that room. Um,
Sorry, I interrupted. But yes, the
no,
plant
that's
room.
okay. The plant
Plant
room. And
room.
then there was a wind room or a weather room. And
Mhm.
I was fascinated by it. Like I kept like, it was really distracting me because I saw people, they were like, woo, they were like balancing like balls of wind and storm and like passing it back. And I just kept like, what is going on in that room? I was so fascinated with it. And then the last room he took me to was the water room. And then that's where I worked. I was in
Right.
the water room.
And that's
Yeah.
where we found out what you did helping with
Yeah.
the fish. Okay, so I'm just
Yeah.
gonna check in again.
Okay.
Leticia, can you send me a message when the video is ready to go so we know? Okay, she's typing something. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties today, but we're working on a video, which is a little bit of a clip from Shelly's session with some of the pictures Shelly drew of the session.
Yeah.
So let me see.
But in the water room, you could see like people bent over and they were working on things. And then there was a huge waterfall in the back of the room. And I felt like there was a door behind the waterfall, but that might have been from the retreat because I saw the same things.
Mhm.
Um, and the door, I think, kind of went up to where we went later. Um, but yeah, so then there was a stream coming down from the waterfall, and that's where I was.
Right.
And I was bent over, and I would take a fish out of the water, and I was taking the scales off individually, and I had like this big long tool, almost like a tweezers.
Hmm.
And I take the scale off, I'd like lay it on a tray, and then I put it through this machine that almost looked like an industrial dishwasher if you've ever worked in a restaurant
Hmm.
where you like
Hmm.
open the lid, put it down.
Hmm.
And I knew like I was infusing it with energy to change the color to a darker color.
Right.
And then I would take the tray out, put the scales back in the fish, and then I would release the fish. And the fish went down like a chute, and they went out somewhere into like a huge body of water. And I said on the video, I said, there's no borders to the water. So I don't know what that means either.
And I remember you
But
saying you were making them prettier because I was like, "Are
yeah,
you creating them?" And you said, "No, someone
yeah,
else created them." I said, "Are they sick? Are you treating
yeah, yeah.
them brighter?" You even said like a bright red salmon color one of them.
Right, right. They were just sort of orange, and then I made them like this crazy bright salmon color, almost like coral. And I know I said on the video, like, I'm making them prettier. We want them to be as pretty as possible. But I knew, like, in my brain that we were making them so they would adapt to this planet better. Like, we had to do something to them so they would tolerate the planet better.
Oh.
Yeah,
And I have a
yeah,
question. When you were putting them back into the stream, were
yeah.
they going directly into the planet or they were still in the lab?
It didn't feel like that at that time. It felt, especially like later on, it was odd because we kept like coming back. I think part of it was I wasn't confident in what I was saying. I was seeing things, and then we would ask Jesus something, and then we would go into more detail. So I'm kind of combining these three
Mhm.
conversations we had.
Yeah, me too.
Um, yeah, but I felt like when I first released it, like it was just like almost an ocean. And then I think like where I was working, it must have been like a huge biosphere or a big ship or something. Um, because I don't think we were releasing them on the planet at that point.
Okay.
Also, I don't think that was my job. I think somebody
Oh,
else put them on the planet. We just changed the evolution or
right.
something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
speaking of we, I kept trying to figure out, are you with your soul group? Are you with a work
I
group?
know. I don't
And
know.
so and so initially you said,
Mm.
I don't have much connection to these people.
Yeah.
But
Mm-mm.
tell me about how you were dressed. Because again, just for those of you listening, I've never experienced anything like this. And this is where it's really fun and fascinating.
Yeah.
Even though I felt like I was kind of over my head because I'm
Yeah.
in new territory, but it was so cool because clearly Shelly is helping create life for a new planet. So I
Yeah.
don't know how that happens. So we're just kind of winging it, trying to figure out what's going
Yeah.
on. So tell
Yeah.
me about how you were dressed.
We all had like we're all dressed in white, like white t-shirts, but like laboratory like clothes, white pants. It felt almost like a sterile environment,
Mhm.
like a laboratory.
Yeah, and I finally
So
asked, and you said yes, scientists.
yeah, yeah. So it's not quite a lab coat, but very like white. Everything was white. And we were all doing our same thing. Yeah, I could not figure out if it was my soul group or not.
Well, I think eventually we realized it was, but at this
Yeah.
point, we're still kind of figuring it out.
Right, right.
Okay, and then you said you communicated without talking?
Yeah, nobody was talking. I didn't even quite realize that. It's funny, like I did not listen to the tape until a couple weeks ago. One, because it just seems so confusing. Even like having this LBL session, I was hesitant to come back because my first one was like so confusing. I was like,
I know we
ah,
were like, "Where are you? What are you
I
doing? What's
know.
happening?"
Yeah, and I was nervous about the family stuff too because, I don't have a relationship with my family right now. So I was nervous about going to a more, you know,
Like the
going
soul
back to
group
your
and all
fam.
that.
Yeah,
Right,
and the womb thing and all that.
right, right,
So,
right.
so then when we started doing this, I was just like, what the heck? Where's my soul group? Where's this?
I
Where's
know,
that? Why does Jesus just treat me like a coworker?
I know, like a
So
buddy,
weird.
like a buddy.
Yeah, like, where's my hug?
But
Um,
even if you remember
yeah,
right, in the past life session, you were part of kinda God's special team,
yeah,
remember?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so I have a
yeah.
couple more notes about your work group, and then I'm gonna check in with Leticia and see if she's able to track down the video. Oh, I see a thumbs up. Perfect. Um, I think this was when we figured out that your brother was
Mm.
Embry?
Yeah, the guy on the waterfall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
I
you wanna
kept
say a little
like
about that?
I felt Like I was bent over, but I could feel like his presence in the room. Like there was very much a connection. So that if that's my brother or whoever that is, that's got to be someone in my soul group
Well,
because
you
he was
said it
very.
was your brother.
I did,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. I know.
I know
And
it's
then
weird, you know.
and then I think Embry was his soul name, and we found out
Yeah,
your immortal soul name. Do you remember what
yeah,
that was?
Yashir,
Mhm,
Yashir, yeah.
mhm.
And that seemed
Exactly.
kind of right. That would seem kind of right. So
And then I
mhm.
always ask, what color are you projecting? Do you remember?
It felt like a very, very, very light blue.
Okay, and again, don't listen, but
Mm,
blue is the color of the advanced souls. And the darker the blue, the more advanced. But it's basically the lighter, the white is like the youngest, and then all the way up to the blues and the purples.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was light blue.
Ah, it doesn't matter. You're still at the other end of
Very
the
light
spectrum.
blue. Yeah. You know, from the first session, you had asked me what my group name was, which we didn't talk about, but I had said there wasn't a word for it, but it's like it's the sound of sand,
Ah,
and I like visualize sand going through an hourglass. So I don't know
and that
the
was
group
what?
name.
What was the
That was
answer?
when I was going through God's robes,
Uh-huh.
remember?
Oh,
And
in
you
the first
said,
session. Yes, yes.
yeah, you said, is there a name for your team? And I said, there's not a name, but it's the sound of sand.
Wow.
So I just thought that was interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
fact, there aren't words and names like we know over there. When I
no,
ask for your guides'
yeah,
names and stuff, we just say something I can refer to you, even initials, because the
right.
names are more like sounds and vibrations. They're not like
Yeah, that's
words
right.
or
That's
letters like
right.
we know, because they don't
Yeah,
speak like we do. They
yeah,
communicate with the mind.
yeah.
Okay, and then I'm gonna have you say one more thing, and then we're gonna show our
Mm.
video. When you went to the next stop, what were you wearing? But don't give away what the next stop is,
Oh
where it's
my
gonna come out in
God.
the video.
Oh, that was the best. I would love to be there right now. We were very formal and we were all dressed alike and we had these very elegant white robes and we were just like so nervous. It was so cool.
Okay. All right. So
Okay.
I think we have our video, which is a little clip of Shelly in the rooms, and you can hear that we don't really know where we are, what's happening. And then a little bit of when she goes to the next place. And I'm not sure exactly which parts came up. I gave
Okay.
the words, I gave the pictures, but I'm not sure which parts ended up in the video,
Okay.
just because we have to edit it down for the show. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Leticia. So, did you get a sense of anything else about what you're doing there?
It just feels like I'm maybe making different colors or
Mhm.
something or
Making different colors.
doing something to their scales and then putting it back.
Were they ill in some way, or you're just
No.
creating them?
Yeah, it feels like I'm putting different colors on them.
Are you part of a creative team that creates them?
I think it's almost like not veterinarian, but I feel like I'm the second step. Like I'm not doing the creating, but they come and they swim around and we watch them and it feels like we were getting maybe an assignment, a big project, and we worked on it and then we put it out on this planet and then those people came and got us to look at the planet.
What people?
The people like these it feels like we're on a spaceship
Hmm.
and they're like giving us the gift of seeing our creation, what it did on that planet. But they are like we're standing off to the side and they're all at this console and we're all looking down, but they are like the micromanagers, like they're like talking and planning all the details, but we're just standing and we have robes on now. They're white robes with like gold trim on the sleeves hanging down, and that's like our special robes when we're allowed to go visit. It's like we dressed up.
Are you part of the people on the spaceship? Is that your people, or they're
Mm,
separate from you?
they're separate. They let us come see.
So they're just the transportation people?
I think they let us work on what. I think they made that planet and they let us like decorate it, is what it
Ah,
feels like.
okay.
Like they called us in to do the nature part.
Okay, got it.
Mm,
Wow. So first of all,
I
how is it
know.
to even hear that?
I just want to go back there so bad. It's so cool.
It's just
Yeah. They
incredible.
were, yeah, they were like short, like maybe 3.5 feet tall, and they all had like these little gray uniforms, almost like military looking, but no weapons or anything, but just like formal, like belts and very square shoulders. And they had like, felt like they had gray caps on, and
Mhm.
they were just like working so hard. And there was probably like 30 or 40 of them. And they were at like this dashboard and they were just like working, working, working. And we were like standing there just like, and I remember first,
Hold on a second, Shelly. Can you hold
okay.
that thought?
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to say I missed it earlier. We've been getting comments. And so
Oh,
David
okay.
just said, wow. Someone else said, awesome. So someone else said Jesus
I
gave
got a
you a
tour.
tour. Exactly. So to me, it's just incredible that,
Yeah,
and I'm learning new details. That's the thing I love about doing this,
yeah,
besides you getting to share with
yeah,
everybody, is I'm getting to learn more because so much is happening. It's almost hard for you to get it all out based on my
yeah.
questions. And I don't know all the questions to ask.
I know it's part
And
of
you
it
sent
is
me the
like,
pictures afterwards. So I didn't know there was a whole bunch of little men, not
oh,
like that.
right, right. Because half the stuff I'm seeing, it's like, I'm not going to say this. This is crazy. This is crazy. I'm not saying this. Or you don't even believe it.
Mhm.
I mean, and of course you get told that before you do this. Like, just say what you see,
Right, right,
but
right.
I'm like, I don't know.
So they were in little like military uniforms, but I also
Yeah.
said, hold that thought. What were you
Uh-huh.
starting to say after the dashboard? You said they were at the dashboard.
Oh, you had said, like, are you the same as those
Oh,
people?
right,
And
right,
at
right.
first we were so still. I'm like, maybe we are. Like, are we aliens? I don't know. But then when I could tell like they got everything working, then we're like, whoo, then like, phew, it's okay, it's working. So then we relaxed. But I suppose it was almost like you're presenting your thesis and they're waiting to get approved, like, is this acceptable? And it's like, okay, it's working. It's like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. Well, and you said at
Yeah,
another point it was like a project because you were getting ready to get a new project handed to you.
that's right. Because when we went back, you had asked what we were doing, and I said, well, we're waiting to get another project.
Mhm.
So
So
yeah,
it was a work group, but it turned out to be your soul group, which we'll talk
I
just a little
think
bit
so.
about in a
Yeah,
minute.
for sure.
But
Some people anyway. Yeah.
yes, and for those who are just tuning in or aren't completely following, Shelley's on a spaceship. You said hovering over a
Oh
planet
yeah. So
to
they would take
to
us
see the work that you
to
guys had
that
been working.
planet.
Yes.
Right. And that's what I couldn't figure out, is if those fish just went on that planet or if those people took them somehow and then we were just being able to visit, like on a smaller ship or something if they took us down. So maybe we were hovering around that planet the whole time and then we just got closer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then do you
Yeah.
remember the name of the planet?
Oh, that was wild. Yeah, I saw like the word Parthenon just flash, almost like a billboard. And then, but it wasn't Parthenon, it was P-A-R-T. And then it had like a funky symbol, almost like a backwards three and an infinity symbol, like tied together. And then it was Eon, E-O-N on the end. So like part 3 to Eon.
If
Which
you
pretty,
can send me that so I can
yeah,
put it in there
yeah.
in our comments and stuff, because
Okay,
I
sounds
think
good.
I think I did part 3
Three.
number non or something. Did
Non,
you see in the
yeah,
Facebook event? Because
yeah,
I anyway, I knew there were numbers and
yeah.
letters in there, but if you could send me that at
It's
some point, that'd be
interesting.
great.
And then I of course I Googled that, and it's just a lot of stars have very similar, there's letters and numbers, and so it's
Yeah,
kind of interesting.
you were on a star. Okay,
Yeah,
let
and
me look
also
and
that planet, there was no life. no human life. It was
Right,
only
right.
raw nature, and it was gorgeous.
Right,
Like,
so that was my next thing I was gonna
yeah,
say, tell us about that because
yeah.
you said there was rocks and it was
Oh my
pure
God,
and
it was beautiful. And everything was like just very pure. Like if you just made a planet, it was
right.
perfect. Everything was bigger and brighter. All the colors are so bright on the other side or
Well, thanks
wherever.
to you.
Well,
And
thanks
people
to
like you.
God, I guess. But oh yeah, and then there was also like I could tell it was like an energy swirling
Mhm, I
around
remember
the
that.
whole planet. And I don't know, then maybe that's what those little ET guys were doing. I don't know, like starting it up or something.
So those little guys in uniform, were they all male?
Seemed like it. But
Okay.
I don't know. They all kind of looked alike, kind of wrinkly faces, and it seemed very male. But
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. Let me see if I have anything else about
okay.
those guys or that visit. I have down pure, untouched, rocks, water, rainforest.
Yeah, it was like a rainforest kind of looking. Hmm.
See the work that you had been doing. It was like a test run.
Yeah, it was a test run.
Mhm.
Um, and that was weird too. It's like I knew in my head already before you were even asking me the questions. I was like, well, yeah, that's how we do it. You put the stuff on there and then you try it out and then it doesn't work. So you go back and you make it again and then you go back and put it out. It's just
Well,
so weird.
because that's what you do over there. So to you, it was like silly
Yeah.
girl, silly
I know,
questions.
it felt like,
You were a scientist. I was asking you
yeah.
very mundane questions.
Yeah.
And I asked, "How does it feel?" And you said, "Amazing."
Oh, so amazing. Yeah. And the weather too. They were
Oh,
trying out the weather and the storms.
that is just
And
great.
then then's when you said, "Well, is it working?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, everything changes all the time, so we have to start it up again or something."
Wow. And you mentioned something about a city a couple times, and I couldn't figure out how that fit
Yeah.
if
It
there's no
felt
people.
if I think it was just a really huge, like, spaceship or like
Oh,
a
the spaceship
yeah,
is
it
what you're
felt like
referring
a
to as the city.
floating city.
Okay, like
Yeah,
a floating city. That's what I
yeah,
wasn't sure about.
yeah.
Okay. And then anything else you wanna add there or even about the first part of the video being in the building with the weather and the nature before I move on to your soul group?
Um, yeah, it was so funny, and Jesus, on that picture, there's a little stick guy out in the hall. That was him. He was just like out in the hall. He'd like bring me to
Hanging out.
places, and then he'd just kind of wait for me, wait for me, wait for me. Yeah. Oops. So,
Oh, and then also you guys were off to the side in your robes,
hmm,
and there was, like, maybe a half dozen of you or so?
yeah, I would say 5, 6, or 7.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then from there, we went to your soul group, which it turned out that's when you said, "Oh, this is my soul group," the people you were working with
Right,
on the
right.
project.
It
And
seemed
then
like it.
do you remember anything in particular? I mean, I have a list of a few people who showed up. Okay, David, have to go back
Yeah.
to work. You had an amazing experience. You can watch it later. Remember, we're recording, so we'll
I
post it
did.
on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah,
Thank you, David.
we were trying to figure out who the people were, and you said, well, let's have them, you know, form
Put
like a
like
clock.
a clock so we can figure out who's
But
who.
that was already in my head. Like people were already stepping forward before you even said that. So when you were like, who's at
12
noon? I'm
o'clock.
just like, somebody else already standing there. Okay, so that was the weird thing is that the woman who came forward
Hold
first.
on before you move forward, just so people
Okay,
understand what
okay.
you're doing. So when we go to the soul group, we ask, can you have your soul beings arrange themselves around you like a clock where you're in the middle and the one in front of you is at 12, the one behind you is at 6, the one to your right is at 3, the one to your left is at 9, just so
Yeah,
we can sort them out as they come to you one at a time, because otherwise it's a little hard to keep track of who's who. So that's when
right,
she says the one at noon means the soul who's standing right in front of her in the
yeah,
circle around her. Okay,
right,
go ahead.
right. She stepped forward. And again, this was all so confusing to me at the time. I didn't remember it, and I hadn't listened to the tape. But the woman stepped forward. She had long, straight hair, bangs, kind of a prominent nose, prominent cheekbones, very almond eyes, almost like if you remember Cher in the 60s, how she was just had this pure face. Um, but then since then, like in the retreat and everything, like every night I just try to talk to my guides, and that's who I visualize as my higher self. Is
Mm,
this woman with long dark hair, bangs, the
mhm.
cheekbones, the eyes. So when I listen to that tape, I'm like, maybe that was my higher self. I don't know. I didn't
Well,
get
and
that.
you had one who was a junior guide. Was that the same woman or that was a different woman?
No, there was a woman more towards 6 o'clock that had
Okay.
blonde hair. And I
Okay.
thought she was the one that went and got the assignment for us.
Oh,
Like
right.
she was
Okay.
she
Right,
was
right,
sort of the
right.
supervisor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of people listed. Um, yes, and I remember you said there was one who went and
Yeah.
got assignments. So maybe that
Yeah.
was you that you were looking at.
I don't
I've
know.
I've had
God.
people, if you haven't had a chance to watch Brian's episode, Brian Smith, where in his soul group, it was him and then some people from his family, and then it was all his past life selves sitting in the circle. Because as he said, all the
That's
lives are
fascinating.
happening at the same time, which I'm like, ah, my
I
brain
know.
can't understand
Doesn't that
that.
blow your mind? I
Exactly.
know.
So those that could have
Oh,
been you.
interesting. Yeah.
And this is also when we found out that your brother was there. And do you remember the special connection with your brother? Even though
Yeah.
it
It
doesn't
was
always
odd.
translate in this life, sometimes we
Very
choose
strange.
different
Yeah.
contracts in this life. But in your soul group, you were
Yeah.
like one soul, you said.
Yeah, we have a different contract, I guess, this life. But
Mm,
it felt like when I would go stand next to him, we would become like this wall or force or something.
mm,
It was very strange.
You said you were like
Very
one soul.
strange.
And then at some point
Yeah.
we asked about Scott, and you said Scott and your brother were like kind of
The
two sides
same.
of the same soul.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. Scott and I have the same birthday.
Scott
My
is her
my
disabled son,
son.
who
Yeah,
is kind of what she
yeah,
does is she takes care of him.
yeah. He's my
Yes.
life. So, but my brother was supposed to have the same birthday too, but he was overdue. So I don't know. That's just kind of odd. I don't know.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then in your soul group, I said, "What are you guys doing?" You were having a work party. Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
So after we got back from visiting that planet, we just got to goof off before we got our next assignment. So we were swimming in that stream. We had music playing, and the people from the weather room and the plant room, they were coming over, and it was just like a big party.
You said like
And
a work party.
yeah, and I was like swimming, like where I fixed the fish, and plants were hitting my head, and it
And
was
see, and I
cool.
didn't get any of this in the session. I just
Uh,
got music and sitting around.
yeah, yeah, I
So
felt like a lily pad hit my head or
that
something.
is
So
crazy.
odd. Yeah.
And then I think I asked at what level your soul group was, and all I remember was something. And again, I have to pull these things out of Shelly
Yeah.
because very modest. But she said yes,
They sound crazy.
they were revered. She kind of
We're
admitted,
revered.
and they were
Yeah,
scientists. So this was a big
yeah,
deal.
yeah, yeah.
And then at the very end, I just asked Jesus some of your questions because you're allowed to bring questions to the session
Oh,
about
one
your
more
life.
thing.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
please.
one more thing. Before we did that clock thing, I think it was, you said, is there um any other rooms you want to try to go to find your soul group or whatever? Because I still couldn't figure it out. And so I thought, yeah, I think there is a place upstairs. And I was thinking of that door behind the waterfall.
Mm.
So I thought, well, I'll go up there. Maybe they're up there. And so Jesus walked me up there. But then I got the feeling that I wasn't supposed to
Oh,
go
right,
in
right.
there.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to mention that
Uh,
part. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
we kind of went to a place where it was sort of
Yeah.
off limits. I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
So, and he was standing right next to me, but then he looked at me and went like, and he like did like a Looney Tunes exit. He was like, boom, he was out of there. And I opened the door, and there were like very serious people sitting at the table.
Mhm,
And I think that they were there in that first video. I think it was the first regression. They
mhm,
were there when I was going in and out of like the curtain of God to get
mhm.
healed or
At the
whatever.
end, right, when you were in
Seemed
God's.
like the same group, but there was a main guy, and he was dressed also very formal. He looked like almost like Captain Crunch, like
Mhm,
uh
mhm.
uniform. And he stood up and he went, "Get out." get out. Like, and I thought he said it with his mouth, not telepathic. And I went, so then
I
I was just
remember.
kind of like standing there and you were asking questions. And I'm like, that's supposed to be
No, I remember you saying, "I don't think I'm supposed to be here."
no,
It was like
that's
a
funny.
council or something, but it was a
Yeah.
higher up group, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's like maybe that's where they do the design or something. I
I
don't
don't know,
know.
but yeah, I remember that. In fact, I think because they told you it was off limits, I was thinking it was off limits, so I didn't even touch it today, but I'm glad you mentioned it because it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
funny that I mean, this is the
Yeah.
cool part about these sessions is
Yeah.
there's these it's a world. It's not like
Yeah.
people what was it my medium friend used to say? It's not all angels and fairy dust over there.
No, mine's not anyway.
No.
But I saw the same thing at the regression too, or at the
At the
retreat. I
retreat?
saw that same room. So, and it was a different experience. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
interesting.
sometimes people go deeper, they find out new things, or they
Yeah,
just add to what they've learned. Okay.
yeah,
Well, thank you for mentioning that. I
yeah.
wasn't sure if you were allowed. Okay.
I got in a little trouble.
Well, they just kind of redirected you and Jesus.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
so I wasn't going to go too deep into your own personal questions because they're personal,
Yeah,
but there are parts that were, I think, kind of interesting and pertinent. Was we did ask something about your life, and they answered about some of the things being hard. As we know, the advanced souls choose harder lives. That's how you know you're an
yeah,
advanced soul. Is they said that you were going to be getting a promotion, and it was related to that. Do you want to say anything?
yeah, yeah. So I had asked, well, also part of the reason why I wanted this whole regression is that since we moved to California, my life is like so peaceful. And before it was like pure chaos, always chaos, chaos, chaos. And um, I also realize now that 99% of the chaos in my life is related to me trying to find that community that I
Mm.
experienced. And I just, everything always blows up for me. So anyway, you had asked, um, why does she have so much chaos? And they said, she is learning to build, she needs to learn how to build a wall against negative energy to manipulate a storm. Um, yeah,
And to
it
be
was
able to manage it. Something about
to
managing the force of the storm. So that's why you were learning to
right
manage it here
to manage a wall of negative force, I believe it was.
because you're going to be promoted to the
Oh
weather
yeah,
room.
it's related to the project we're working on, and it has to do with the weather room. And then he said that I want to go work in the weather room. And you said, "Is that a big deal?" And I said, "Yeah, it's a really big deal to go
Mhm.
work in the weather room."
You were being
And it
promoted.
was just funny because when I was up there, I kept getting distracted looking at that weather room,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh, that was
yeah,
amazing. Okay. And,
yeah.
and there were a couple other questions. Oh, just these were just messages that you got.
Mhm.
Don't worry about the little stuff. One of my,
Yeah.
do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, he had just said like, don't worry about all the little pieces of hardship, kind of. He didn't say
Mm.
that, but think of it as a whole big
Right.
picture
Right. Right.
because
Right.
it's the whole negative force that I've got to learn to hold back. And it was he's like, like I had to hold it back,
Hmm.
is what he
Exactly.
showed me. It was very
Well, and
interesting.
it's interesting because one of the questions I always ask is, what characteristics does this soul take from life to life? And
Oh
they
yeah,
said yours was your attention to detail.
attention to
So it's interesting
detail.
because you have this attention to detail, which works great as a scientist, but then they're also saying, don't focus on the little things, focus on the big things.
Oh my God, that's true. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess he meant on this side,
Right.
on this life.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And then we asked about your flying dreams. Do you remember
that was
anything about that? And
crazy.
what were those about?
Yeah, so flying dreams, and then also flying dreams, he said, it's glimpses into vastness of planets she worked on, and then she was able to see her work. And also those things I had where I had like a couple episodes of all I could see was like light and sound during a couple really hard times in my life. We asked about that too, like what was that? And
Mhm.
also hearing a voice one time. And he
Mhm.
said, basically, it's just the veil is so thin that I can peek through it
Right, right,
sometimes. Yeah. Or like peel it back. I can like peel it back and look
right,
through.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I
And then
know.
just at the end, I asked, kind of summing it up a little bit about it, and you said,
Yeah.
"Everything works in a flow." I think you were talking about the
Yes.
and that it's
Yes.
all good. But did you have
Yeah.
any other thoughts or anything that you wanted to share about this experience or what you learned or
It
how
just was,
how it was?
yeah, everything did just, I guess the flow was especially in the lab. Like
Mhm,
everybody was just working together. It was so crazy and it was unspoken.
mhm.
It was wild, wild. Check
So
on my notes real quick.
before I let you go, any other thoughts about your session or your experience or anything you want to share with people watching and listening?
Yeah, actually, a couple things that Jesus had said was like, and it was related to the chaos of my life. He had said, "It means nothing. It means nothing." He said that like a couple times to me. And then, "This is not real. This is not real," he said. And at the time, it didn't make any sense to me. And I just kind of thought I was making it up or something. Well, since then, um, I'm reading A Course in Miracles. If you ever have heard of that, it's like channeling that Jesus did.
Mhm.
And that's like the first lesson is that this means nothing. This life means nothing. It's, yeah. So it's like, oh, that is really odd why I would say that. Yeah. Maybe
Jesus.
it really was him. I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? This was
Uh,
amazing. I was overwhelmed just because
yeah.
I couldn't figure out where we were or what we were doing or where we were going. But I have to admit,
Yeah.
putting it together for the episode, I felt like it cohered way better than when we were experiencing it because we were both just kind of
Yeah.
like over our heads.
Yeah.
But putting it
Definitely.
together, it kind of made sense. Like it crystallized a little bit.
Right. Right. Yeah. When we were done, I think we both just looked at each other like, what the heck was that? And then I got out to the car. I walked out to the car and I sat down and it was just like download. And then the first thing that occurred to me is I raised monarchs like as a hobby. I got
Mhm.
into it like 3, 4 years ago. I just said, that's what I do with monarchs every day. I sit
Oh,
in the yard, literally, and I do this, and I've got microscopes. Like last year, I raised over 200 monarchs, and it's
butterflies.
butterflies, monarch butterflies. And it's like now that I've got nothing going in my life except, life, I don't work, I guess. I mean, that's all I do. I play with bugs, I play with
That's
butterflies.
crazy,
That's
Shelly.
all I do. It's like who I was at 5 years old. It's like she knew what was going on.
That's
Like if I
amazing.
could just wipe out my whole life and just be that person, that's that's who I was supposed to be, I think. It's so odd.
Wow. That is
Yeah,
crazy.
very odd. Yeah.
Wow, it's beautiful. So,
Yeah.
and
Fun.
then I roped you into the retreat. I was like, "Shelly, you have to come." And
Yeah,
here we
that was
are.
wild.
So,
Yeah, that was wild.
well, this was an amazing session. And again, I know my advanced souls are always really modest and shy. So I appreciate you coming on, not even just once, but twice.
Thanks.
So it's
Thanks.
a gift you give to us to share this.
Yeah.
So,
I hope people do it also. It's life changing. I had no idea it would be life changing. It's been life changing. So,
yeah. And it's life changing for me too when I get to experience it with you.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
You've got a hard job keeping up with all this weird stuff coming out now, you
well,
know?
and that's when I switch from your questions to my questions. So, what are you doing in
What's
here?
going
Exactly. I feel like I turn into a researcher for the Newton Institute, you know? Tell
Right,
me
right.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All
So
right.
interesting.
All right, Shelly. Well, hang
Yeah.
hang out for a bit. Don't go away.
Okay.
But I'm gonna take you out of the stream and we're gonna do a little wrap
Sounds
up.
good. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Here we go. All right. Well, that was pretty incredible. And as I said, my advanced souls are always a little reluctant to come on because they're just so modest. But I wanted to say to everybody listening and watching, thank you for being with us. I want to tell you about a special offer we have. We have a retreat, the one that Shelly talked about going to be with like-minded souls. That's why we created it. And as part of that, there's a past life regression, and there is a snapshot of a life between lives that you get to experience. So we would love to have you join us. And we have an early bird special. Leticia, my assistant, will post the codes in the comments for you. Early bird for one single room, it's now $200 off. And then early bird double, if you go with a friend, it's already discounted, and then you get another $200 off each. So we would love to have you join us. It's in October. Our last retreat sold out, so sign up early. In fact, I think about half the people who came to the first one are planning to come to the second one. So we'd love to have you join us. And I think that's the main things I wanted to mention. And stay tuned. Well, be sure to watch next time. We have another very advanced soul. This is the one I posted about in our Facebook group. In fact, maybe we can even post a link to that. I didn't tell Leticia to do that in advance, so maybe we could do that after. But this was the person where when we crossed over, and usually I'm talking to their guide, this person's guide was God. And he said God put his arm around him like they were buddies. And so that was a pretty amazing session too. So I am just a humble little messenger bringing these sessions and episodes to you. But I do feel like because you are watching and listening, that the spirit beings on the other side are sending us very amazing, incredible, advanced people so they can share with you. So you can find out what the life between lives is all about. So thank you again for watching and listening. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And join us next week for another episode of Soul Guide.